It is 7:36. Rod Thorson on the most important radio station in north central Illinois. News is going to come up after we talk to my good friend Tio Hardiman from Chicago. He's Mr. Ceasefire, as he's known. He's with the Violence Interrupters. He had quite a life and a great story, too. Grew up on the streets and has survived it, and now takes his message of healing and hope to people all over the Midwest. Good morning, my good friend. How are you, Tio?
I'm doing real good. It's an honor to be here with you. Good
to have you here. I'm glad to call you a friend. You are in receipt of the stories from Streator. We've got a community here that's been stricken with recent gun violence. One of it on Easter Sunday. It was a tragic situation where a 17-year-old was killed. You have been on the streets in economically disadvantaged places for a lot of years. You wrote a book about it. And how to fix or solve this problem. What is it? We need to change some mindsets. What's going to be the number one thing that needs to happen in order to make a place like this safe?
Yeah, number one is that we have to address this issue of gun violence as a public health crisis, an emergency here throughout the United States, because violent thinking spreads like an infectious disease. And so that's why in my book, Interrupting Gun Violence, we approach it from a public health standpoint, because if you look at all the public health campaigns, the anti-smoking campaigns, how major changes have been made because they put a lot of resources into educating people on how to stay away from secondhand smoke, and then they stop people from smoking in a lot of different places. Mm-hmm. So now people are not catching secondhand cancer. So, right, lung cancer and all those type of diseases, rather. So we have to approach it by educating young men, because a lot of people have learned violent ways growing up. And we have to help them unlearn some of the teachings they've had over the years. Just like the young man took a butcher knife to a track meet and ended up stabbing a guy to death. Why would you take the butcher knife to the track meet in the first place? And some people have guns and they don't have the right intention. So, see, put it like this: if a person is not thinking right, any little infraction or any little argument could turn deadly. That's why I say we have to change the thinking with young men and women across the United States.
Yeah, sometimes substances, drugs are involved. Sometimes they're not. But one thing that seems to be common, this violence is rooted in economic disparity, economic problems and issues, whether you're in the city of Chicago or in Streator, Illinois. How are we going to fix this? And you mentioned, investment, public investment. Yeah. Can this be fixed? Can this be helped?
Yeah, it's a twofold approach. Number one, we have to provide more resources to some of the people living in some of these communities out here. For example, like in Chicago, there's like an 85% unemployment rate for African-American young men between the ages of 16 and 24. We're talking about a staggering 85%. So in Streator, I have friends in Streator, Illinois as well. I want to just say that, and I really would like to support the mayor there also. But the reality is that it's going to take economics, and it's going to take like a detoxification process where people can learn how to deal with conflicts without the use of violence. We understand self-defense, but it's about cognitive-like behavior and changing the way people really, really think, because it's hard to change the circumstances of people. And you understand also the history of a lot of different ethnic groups here in the United States. Early on, when a lot of the migrants come from, Ireland, Italian, Jewish people, they were violent back in the 1920s, New York, Chicago, the gangster era. And now you're looking at the year 2025, the violence just continues to just spread, and we have to stop it and reverse the tide. My Violence and Brothers have mediated around 35 conflicts this year, where we stopped people on the front end before any shots were fired and saved about 35 lives so far this year.
Well, there certainly is racial tension. I mean, in America, we'll admit that there's racial tension, in downstate Illinois, just like in the city too. But what are the approaches that you take when you or your brothers are on the streets at night? You're reaching out to people who may be looking for trouble. What are the approaches that you and the Violence Interrupters take?
Number one, I have a 40-hour training that I facilitate before I allow anybody to work on the streets. And number two, it's important to have credible messages that already have like a relationship with some of these young guys out here, some of these would-be shooters, killers, whatever the case may be. So when we work with them, we take them on as some of our clients, and we work with them for a couple of years and help them change their mindset. Then we re-enroll them back into school. We help them find job training or find employment. And we also work with them because some young men have some lightweight mental health issues, and we help them deal with some of the unaddressed trauma in their lives. So it's bigger than just street out. It's bigger than that. It's really a total public health approach And that's what we do. So we work with one person at a time, and we provide them with all the information they need to become productive members of society.
I'm glad you said the word trauma, because it's true. And these kids, they grow up in environments, in some cases, where they experience trauma. It's no fault of their own. They've just grown up in an environment that's been traumatic.
Right.
And how successful is this, and can it be, by investing in this as a public health issue? Go ahead.
No, I'm saying if you look at, like, say, the anti-smoking campaign, it was very successful, but it's going to take a multi-layered type of approach, because like a safety net for all the people here that are struggling with this issue. See, the only problem is it's hard to, like, for example, employ everybody. Going back to Chicago for a minute, like 45,000 young men are not working. That's a lot of people. So how do you help people, make that shift to become productive members of society and have the opportunities available for them? So, and I'll say this too so people will understand. You can have a lot of money as a young person, but if you don't change your thinking, you might find yourself out there continuing to live a street life, so to speak, right? It's been we've seen this many times with some of these rappers out here. They're making money, but they still want to engage in violent behaviors. So it's bigger than just the money altogether, but at the same time, if you have the resources and you have the right messengers, the credible messengers and violence interrupters that can work with these young guys, because a lot of the violence interrupters come from the same type of background these young guys are dealing with, so they can understand them, and then the violence interrupters that turns their lives around, and not just turns it around. They're educated now. A lot of violence interrupters have their bachelor's degrees. Some of them have gone back to school, and they have their own businesses now as well, so they can really, really train and educate these young men and help them reach a higher plateau.
Yeah, we should all want that. One thing that I think got a lot of people's attention, number one, it was on Easter Sunday, but a 17-year-old is dead. Okay, we don't know all the details here, but a 17-year-old is dead. And it seems to me that if you're going to the streets, that you leave your kids alone. You leave your kids out of this. I mean, there's enough trauma at home in some cases. A 17-year-old, for all we don't know all the details, but a 17-year-old was struck, killed in a car on Easter Sunday. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I tell people all the time, be careful. Do not engage in any arguments with anybody at any given time, because, see, a crazy person that's already thinking that way, all they need is a slight infraction. They're willing to pull the trigger, right? So on an anger scale from 1 to 10, a lot of people that have been taught this violent behavior, they're already on 9.5. So all it takes, they don't really need an excuse to do something and harm somebody. So what I would say, when you get a person, a 17-year-old shot and killed, like say the verdict is still out, we don't know the background of what happened, but in a town like Streator, Illinois, there shouldn't be no gun violence, period. So, I really pray for that community, because we have a lot of success here as far as in Chicago right now. Homicides are down significantly, about 40 homicides less this year compared to last year at this same time. But we have to take it one day at a time. But in Streator, I believe it's a small enough, I think it's around 10,000 more people that live in Streator.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Pretty close to that, yeah.
Yeah, so we should be able to put a safety net initiative together in Streator, Illinois, to make sure this never happens again, because it just shouldn't happen out there. And see, a lot of times when a community is quiet like a Streator, Illinois, what happens is we don't see this coming. So this is something that caught the people in Streator off guard, and now you got the loss of the life of a 17-year-old. So we have to work. We have to identify the young men that need the help in Streator, number one, and then provide them with all the resources they need.
Tio, I'm glad that we're friends. I'm glad we met back in the day. When you're in Starved Rock local, please reach out. We'll go enjoy nature or something like that, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the city sometime too, my friend. Thanks for being on WLPO.
And people can visit my website, okay? It's
Please
violenceinterrupters.org, and I appreciate it. And then my book is Interrupting Gun Violence. You can purchase the book on Amazon. Then I have my second book, will be published this weekend, Rob. It's titled Death of an Addict, Resurrection of a Man, How I Struggle with Drug Addiction. I've been clean 30 years plus now.
God bless you and all you stand for. I'm happy to know you, and happy as a friend, and happy as a fellow sober person, too. His book is Interrupting Gun Violence. It's a public health approach. It's on Amazon, and I'll look for your new book next week on Amazon, too, Tio.